A young man just 22 years old steps into a world he never imagined. Prison. He's small, athletic, and completely out of place. The moment the gates slam shut, he realizes he's surrounded by men who could break him in an instant, but among them one man stands out, the most feared, the most dominant prisoner in the facility, and he has his eyes set on him. What happens when the predator becomes obsessed with his prey? Stay with us until the end, because this story will take you to the darkest corners of survival, power, and an unexpected kind of passion. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss stories like this one, intense, gripping, and unforgettable. The moment the metal gate slammed shut behind me, I knew my life would never be the same. I had seen prisons and heard stories about them, but nothing prepared me for the reality of being locked up for the first time. The air smelled of sweat, steel, and something else, something rotten, like a place where hope had died a long time ago. I clutched the small bundle of state-issued clothes in my hands, trying not to let my fingers tremble as I followed the guard down the long corridor. Fresh meat, someone muttered as I passed. Laughter echoed around me. Eyes were on me, hungry, curious, amused. I kept my head down. Just keep walking, Ethan. Don't react. I wasn't built for this place. At 22 years old, I was lean, athletic, but not strong. My blonde hair and light skin made me stand out in ways I didn't want to. I didn't belong here, but none of that mattered. Now I was prisoner number 64827, and I had to survive. The guard finally stopped in front of cell 207 and gestured for me to step inside. I swallowed hard. This was it. No turning back. The cell was small, barely big enough for the 2 beds, a toilet, and a rusted sink in the corner. And then I saw him, my cellmate. He sat on the lower bunk, shirtless, muscles rippling beneath dark skin, tattoos covering both arms. His eyes cold, calculating, locked onto me. I felt my stomach tight. I knew his name before he even spoke. Everyone in this prison knew his name, Marcus Johnson. He was 65, built like a damn machine, and had a reputation that sent shivers down people's spines. He ruled this prison, and now I was his new self-mate. Marcus didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at me like he was deciding what I was worth. I forced myself to meet his gaze, show no fear. The silence stretched, then finally he smirked. You're in the wrong place, pretty boy. My throat went dry. I knew what he meant. Guys like me, young, small, knew we didn't last long in a place like this. I squared my shoulders, trying to steady my voice. Guess I don't have a choice. Marcus let out a low chuckle. He stood up, towering over me. His presence was overwhelming, a wall of muscle and dominance. He took a slow step closer. I wanted to move back, but my legs wouldn't listen. What's your name? His voice was deep, steady. I swallowed hard. Ethan. Marcus tilted his head, amused. Ethan, he repeated, as if tasting the name on his tongue. Then he leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. You're mine now, Ethan. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest, and just like that, I knew I was in more danger than I had ever imagined. The moment Marcus stepped in, everything shifted. The 2 men who had cornered me in the showers, I am immediately backed off, their faces tense with hesitation. They weren't afraid of the guards, they weren't afraid of consequences, but they were afraid of him. Marcus stood there, arms crossed, his massive frame blocking the exit like an immovable wall. The silence stretched for a few unbearable seconds before one of them muttered, "Didn't know he was yours, Johnson." Marcus tilted his head slightly, as if considering the words, then with a voice so calm it sent a chill down my spine, "He replied, he is." That was it. The 2 men didn't argue. They didn't linger. They simply turned and disappeared out of the showers, leaving only me and him. The water was still running behind me, but I couldn't move. My skin was clammy from more than just the steam. My heart was still pounding, my breath coming too fast. I hated that I felt shaken. I hated that I had let myself get into that situation in the first place. Marcus finally took a step forward, closing the space between us. He didn't touch me, but he didn't have to. His presence was enough. His eyes scanned me, checking for damage. When he spoke, his voice was lower than before. "You don't go anywhere alone, Ethan. Not here." My throat felt dry. I swallowed and nodded, not trusting my voice. He lingered for a second, his gaze unreadable, before finally turning and walking out. Just like that, the tension broke. The danger had passed, but the unease in my chest remained. By the time I made it back to the cell, Marcus was already lying on his bunk, his back against the wall, one arm draped over his stomach. His tattoos stood out against the dim prison light, ink patterns of past violence and loyalty marking his skin. I hesitated by the door. I wanted to say something, maybe even thank him, but the words felt too heavy, too dangerous. He had just claimed me in front of other inmates. That wasn't something that happened lightly in prison. It meant something. Instead, I stepped inside, quietly moving toward my own bunk. As I sat down, Marcus finally spoke. "You're too soft for this place." I stiffened, my hands gripping the edge of the mattress. "I can handle myself." He let out a short, quiet laugh. "That why I just had to pull two guys off you." Shame burned at the back of my neck. I hated that he was right. He exhaled, shifting slightly on the bed. "You think I'm doing this for fun? Claiming you?" I didn't answer. I wasn't sure I wanted to. "No, you won't last in here alone," he continued, his voice calm but firm. "You either have protection or you're prey. And I don't like watching things break." I turned my head, forcing myself to look at him. "So that's it, I'm yours now." His eyes met mine. Something flickered there, something deep, something unreadable. "You were mine the second you walked in here." Pretty boy, a shiver ran down my spine. I didn't know if it was fear or something else entirely. All I knew was that my life had just become a whole lot more complicated. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of heavy footsteps and the metallic clang of cell doors opening down the block. The routine had already begun. Guards shouting, inmates moving. Another day of surviving. For a second, and I forgot where I was. The cold reality hit me the moment my eyes landed on the concrete walls, the rusted toilet in the corner, and most of all, Marcus sitting on the lower bunk watching me. His eyes were sharp, studying me in a way that made my stomach tighten. "Get up," he said simply, his deep voice carrying an authority that made it clear he wasn't giving me an option. I sat up slowly, my muscles tense from the night before. Marcus had saved me in the showers. He had made sure everyone knew I belonged to him, but the question still lingered, why I wanted to ask, but I didn't. Instead, I got up and followed him out of the cell. Breakfast was chaos. The cafeteria was packed, voices overlapping, trays slamming down onto tables. I could feel the stares on me, some amused, some curious, some hostile. I didn't belong here, and everyone knew it. Marcus led the way to the same table we sat at yesterday. His crew was already there, their conversation stopping when we arrived. I didn't miss the way some of them looked at me, like they were wondering if I was temporary or if Marcus was serious about keeping me under his wing. I sat down cautiously, keeping my head down. The food in front of me was barely edible, but I forced myself to eat. One of Marcus's guys, a tall, lanky man with a snake tattoo running down his arm, smirked. "So how's the new recruit holding up?" I didn't answer. Marcus, however, didn't even up. "He's fine," the guy chuckled. "Yeah, seemed a little shaky last night." My grip on my fork tightened, my heart pounded. Marcus finally lifted his gaze, his expression unreadable. "You got something to say?" The table went silent. The man held up his hands. "Relax, big guy, just making conversation." Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to. The tension was enough to shut the guy up. The message was clear. No one questions Marcus, and no one questions what's his. After breakfast, Marcus didn't let me out of his sight. Everywhere I went, he was there. The showers, the yard, even when I tried to keep to myself, he wasn't hovering. He was just there, a presence that no one dared to challenge. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt trapped. By the time evening rolled around, I was exhausted, not just physically but mentally. This prison was swallowing me whole. Back in our cell, Marcus sat on his bunk, arms crossed, watching me again. I exhaled sharply, frustration bubbling up. What his lips twitched, almost like he was amused. "You don't talk much." I ran a hand through my hair. "What do you want me to say?" Marcus leaned back against the wall, stretching out his legs. "I want to know why you're here." The question caught me off guard. No one had asked me that. For a moment, I hesitated, then finally I muttered, "I got caught up in something Stupid Marcus raised an eyebrow waiting. I sighed, wrong place, wrong time, some guys I knew pulled a robbery, I was there. Didn't even do anything, but I didn't run. Either he studied me, his expression. Unreadable, how long you in for 2 years, eh? Long pause, then Marcus smirked, you won't last 2 months in here on your own anger. Flared in my chest, and you think I should just be grateful that you claimed me. Marcus didn't blink, I think you should be. Smart silence stretched between us. Finally I spoke, and what do you get out of this? For the first time something shifted in his expression. His voice was quieter when he answered, maybe I just like keeping things that interest me. A shiver ran down my spine. I wasn't sure what terrified me more, the way he said it, or the fact that part of me didn't hate hearing it, and that was dangerous. Days passed. I kept my head down, followed the routines, and tried to stay invisible, but that was impossible when Marcus Johnson had made it clear that I was his. It didn't matter if I didn't understand why. It didn't matter if I resented it. In prison, power was everything, and Marcus had more than anyone wherever I. When I felt his presence in the yard, he kept me close. In the cafeteria, he made sure there was always space next to him. And when anyone so much as looked at me the wrong way, they quickly realized their mistake. I was safe, but I was also trapped. The worst part, I wasn't sure if I wanted to escape. That night I sat on my bunk, staring at the ceiling. Marcus was below me, silent. The dim light from the hallway cast long shadows on the walls. I shifted, trying to get comfortable, but the mattress was thin, the springs pressing against my back. I sighed, I don't get it. Marcus's deep voice cut through the darkness. Get what? I hesitated. Why you're doing this? There was a long pause, then he exhaled, his voice lower than before. I told you I don't like watching things break. I turned my head, looking down at him. And what happens when you get bored? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pushed himself up, sitting on the edge of his bunk. His face was unreadable in the dim light. I don't get bored easily, he finally said. His eyes met mine, holding me. There's something passed between us, something dangerous. I swallowed hard, my pulse quickening. I needed to change the subject. Tell me about the rules, I said. The real ones, not the ones the guards give us. Marcus studied me for a second, then leaned back against the wall. Oh, right, pretty boy, listen up. I sat up straighter. Waiting rule: when you don't owe anyone anything, the second you do, they own you. I nodded, taking it in. Rule 2, never show weakness, not to the guards, not to the other inmates. Weakness gets you hurt. I swallowed hard. I had already learned that lesson. Rule 3, he continued, his voice dropping slightly. No, he belonged to. My breath hitched. I knew what he meant. I knew exactly what he meant. Silence stretched between us. Then, before I could stop myself, I asked, and who do you belong to? Marcus, he smirked, his gaze dark, unreadable. Guess you'll have to find out. The next day, everything changed. It started in the yard. I was walking with Marcus and his crew, trying to stay in my lane, trying to keep my head down. Then I heard the voice, hey, pretty boy. I turned my stomach immediately. Nodding, a group of inmates stood by the fence, watching me with far too much interest. One of them, a bald guy covered in gang tattoos, smirked. Heard you got yourself a bodyguard. That true? I didn't answer. I didn't have to, because Marcus stepped forward before I could even open my mouth. The entire yard went silent. Marcus didn't say anything at first. He just stared at the guy, his expression unreadable. Then finally he spoke. You have 3 seconds to walk away. The guy chuckled. Relax, big guy, just making conversation. Marcus didn't move one. They guy smirk faltered to his friends. Shifted uncomfortably. All right, right. Damn, the guy muttered, raising his hands. Didn't mean nothing by it. Marcus didn't take his eyes off him as he walked away. I lit, out of breath. I hadn't realized I was holding. Marcus turned to me, his gaze sharp. You don't talk to them. I nodded quickly, because in that moment I realized something. Marcus wasn't just protecting me, he was warning me, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to know what happened to people who ignored his warnings. The next few days passed in a blur of routine. Wake up, eat, survive. I followed the rules Marcus had set for me, even if I didn't always understand them. I didn't talk to people unless he allowed it. I didn't go anywhere alone. And I never questioned why he kept me so close, but the tension between us was growing. It was in the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, the way he stood just a little too close when we walked side by side, the way his voice dropped lower whenever he spoke to me, like he was testing something neither of us wanted to name. I told myself it was nothing, but deep down I knew better. It happened in the laundry room. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. The guards didn't pay much attention to this area, and most of the other inmates had already finished their shifts. I was folding a stack of prison uniforms when I felt it, that prickling sensation at the back of my neck. I wasn't alone. I turned just as a hand grabbed my arm. "Where's your shadow now, pretty boy?" The voice was familiar, the same guy from the yard. I tensed instinctively, trying to pull away, but his grip was firm. His friends were close behind him, blocking the exit. My pulse pounded. I knew how this worked. Marcus wasn't here, and in prison being alone meant being vulnerable. "You think Johnson's going to protect you forever?" he sneered. "We just want to talk." I swallowed hard. I knew damn well they didn't just want to talk. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, when suddenly the entire shifted. A presence filled the space, one so strong that everyone felt it before they even saw him. Marcus. He was at the doorway, his massive frame darkening the already dim room. The air turned ice cold, his eyes locked onto the man gripping me, and I swore I saw a flicker of something deadly behind them. I had seen Marcus angry before, but this was different. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to, because the guy let go of me immediately, stepping back with his hands raised. "Hey man, we weren't." Marcus moved 1 second. He was across the room. Next he had the guy pinned against the laundry machines, his forearm pressing against his throat. I froze. The entire room froze. The guy choked out something unintelligible, his hands clawing at Marcus's arm, but Marcus didn't let up. He leaned in, his voice low, controlled. "If you ever touch him again, I'll break your hands first." The guy made a strangled noise. Marcus didn't blink. "Then I'll break your legs." Silence. Then Marcus continued, his voice impossibly calm. "I'll make sure you never speak again." The guy's face turned red. His friends were frozen, too scared to intervene. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Marcus released him. The man stumbled back, coughing, avoiding Marcus's gaze as he motioned for his friends to leave. They didn't hesitate. The second they were gone, I let out a shaky breath. My hands were still clenched into fists, my whole body tense. I turned to Marcus, unsure what to say, but before I could speak, he was in front of me, close, too close. "You don't go anywhere alone." His voice was low, rough. I nodded. I wasn't about to argue, but then he reached out. His hand brushed against my jaw, just a quick touch, barely there, but it lingered. I sucked in a breath, my heart slamming against my ribs. Marcus's gaze flickered to my lips for half a second, so fast I almost missed it. Then just as quickly he stepped back. The moment was gone, but the damage had already been done, because now I wasn't just afraid of the other inmates. I was afraid of what Marcus Johnson was doing to me, and worse, I wasn't sure I wanted it to stop. That night Marcus didn't push, he didn't say another word, but his presence was enough. I could feel him sitting on the lower bunk, his body still, his breathing steady. He was giving me space, letting me choose. But was there even a choice? I turned over, staring at the ceiling. I knew the answer. The next day everything felt different. Marcus didn't hover, but he was always there. His eyes followed me, his presence wrapped around me like a silent warning to anyone else. And I didn't hate it. I hated that I didn't hate it, because in this place, belonging to someone meant survival, and somehow I had become his. It happened after lights out. The cell was dark, but I could feel him close, too close. I turned, and before I could think, before I could stop myself, I moved toward him. I didn't speak, neither did he. Words weren't needed. Marcus reached for me, his grip firm, claiming without asking, because he already knew the answer. And when our bodies finally touched, when his heat surrounded me, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't afraid anymore, because for the first time since I got here, I felt safe, and that scared me more than anything else.